Chapter 14. Aeronautics, Inhabited Planets, Sectarianism. A great deal of interest is being manifested in your city this morning, April 25th, 1920, over the Aeronautical show. You imagine the flying machines' wonderful mechanisms, but in their present state, they will not lift you out of your atmosphere. You have yet to perfect a real airship. Your flying machines are cumbersome and awkward, and they consume lots of fuel and make a deal of noise. It can hardly be said they are harmonious with the music of the spheres, but then it is only a sample of your Earth's development. You have seen the seagulls soar over the water, seemingly without motion, and yet they go up and down, turning this way and that without effort. This is the best idea I can give you of our airships, which really soar. No sound, no discordant vibrations disturb the quiet of the Martian atmosphere and the tranquility of the Mars people. When you have learned the secret of how to tap the universal reservoir of cosmic power, then will you evolve a perfect flying machine such as we have? A great deal of interest is also being centered on an attempt to signal Mars, and your apparatus is not fine enough to receive our waves. But success will come to you in another decade, and we will be able to get something through for your scientific world. It is gratifying to know that a large portion of your population entertain the belief that Mars is inhabited, and also that the possibilities point to the fact that other planets are inhabited. You have advanced a long way to come to that belief, but you are yet a long way from the truth. You are on the eve of an awakening, and much will come through the discoveries of scientists who are devoting their lives to the study of truth. It is true that only a few of that number are bold enough to proclaim all they discover, and they must bear the brunt of much harsh criticism. In the end, however, ignorance must give way to light. We look upon your inventions with much amusement, and yet with great interest, just as you would look upon your children's finest toys. We are much older than you and are doing all we can to help your scientists by impressing them with thoughts that will lead them to discover new truths. And our interest never flags. How could it if we are doing the Father's work? For it is the Father's great pleasure to give his children all they can receive. If you could cut loose from your world conventions and could perceive new ideas, if you would but disregard man-made theories and open your minds and souls to the Father's revelations, it would not be long before your sin-cursed and forsaken earth would be changed into a paradise. But the tendency among you is to think as your forefathers thought rather than cut new paths. However, your children of this generation are of a different sort, and they must be taught the importance of developing the spiritual intellect. There is more individualism being born into the world today than ever before. There are fewer children, but they are stronger. The year 1920. These children, with their originality and esoteric tendencies, will bring on a revolution on your planet that will end by destroying your threadbare dogmatism. This tendency is evidenced by the recent failure of the interchurch movement. It has been the habit on your planet that you cannot accomplish anything without raising immense sums of money. It is not money that does the real work, but rather personal service. People are inclined to give almost everything than personal service. If each person lived the Christ life, there would be no need of money. A close study of the Mars economic system will demonstrate that truth. Chapter 15. Life, an attribute of the entire universe. The planet Jupiter. Life is an attribute of the entire universe. Go forth on a moonless night and behold the firmament emblazoned with its myriad of scintillating stars, solar orbs, nebulae, world systems in the making. The galactic circle, a jeweled band athwart the canopy of heaven, a seething maelstrom of light, countless suns in space, all expressing the one reality, omniscience. Only presumptuous man can question the divine intent in the creation of the infinite number of giant suns, stupendous worldwide systems, and place his particular world unit at the center of the cosmos. Man contemplates this handiwork of God as a mere adjunct, more ornamental than useful, to his terrestrial environment, conceitedly thinking that the Father's only consideration is centered about himself. As these life-giving orbs are countless in number, their orbits extending as they do to infinity in all directions, so is it with the habitable worlds in space. Some there are where life is not yet possible, worlds not yet far removed from their primitive state, not long since it condensed from fire mist. Others where life has just begun, others on whose surfaces live teeming millions of God's creatures, just as you live, and others have lived before you. And there are other worlds whose life cycle has been run, where intelligent life has ceased, where world disintegration has set in. For this is in accordance with the universal law of growth and decay, a law that exempts neither the one-celled amoeba nor the complex solar system whirling yonder in infinite space. For all that comes from the Father into material expression must someday revert to its primordial state. You have thus far received much concerning the idealistic conditions on Mars, whose planetary career is now reaching the zenith of its cosmic cycle, and whose denizens have progressed to a degree of divine unfoldment not yet attained by many worlds. It is necessary that you now receive some information relating to one of the less advanced planets belonging to the family of our Sun, in order you may be able to learn, by contrast, something of the wonders of God's work. Jupiter, owing to its prodigious size, being nearly 11 times larger than your Earth, but whose density is proportionately less, might well be styled the master planet of our system. Jupiter is well blessed with satellites, having 8, a description of which is not necessary at this time. This planet is in what might be styled its primary evolutionary stage, where life has just begun. This life has not evolved beyond the unicellular or amoebic stage, and it will be only after the lapse of a long period of time, measured in geological units, when more complex organisms will appear, and many of these periods will come and go before this planet's surface will have attained a proper development for the propagation of intelligences capable of being classed with the denizens of your Earth. Long before that age arrives, Jupiter's surface and atmosphere will undergo a tremendous change. Mighty planetary cataclysms will raise new mountain ranges. New continents will appear, and the present land surfaces on this planet will sink, to be covered with slime and water, to rise again in the centuries to come. For the Father's love and solicitude will provide, as it has in the case of all his celestial creations, a bountiful supply of stored-up radiant energy such as coal and petroleum, and other elements for the comfort of those who will inhabit this giant among the worlds of this system in time to come. Jupiter still retains much of its internal heat, which gives this planet a very high mean temperature. Its atmosphere is still very dense, and owing to the very rapid evaporation of water due to the extreme heat, a constant cloud canopy covers its surface, which only dissipates occasionally in a slight degree, at which times only the sun penetrates to the surface of the globe. By reason of the constant thick cloud canopy over the surface of Jupiter, the planet is enveloped in deep gloom and darkness. As radiation is arrested to a marked degree by the clouds and atmosphere, the temperature is very humid as well as hot. In this steam environment grow forests of fern and fungus-like trees, and rank vegetal growths which will in the course of time be preserved as coal for the races destined to inhabit this planet. This vegetal growth is a flora that knows not bloom or seed, but is propagated by root and spores. A flora most primitive in type, but which will in time evolve through the law of mutation and adaptation into a diversified and useful vegetal kingdom for the races yet to come on the planet. Owing to the tremendous gravitational pull on Jupiter, present organisms are, and future ones will be evolved along specially modified lines, in order that they may encompass the least possible volume, just as the denizens of the extreme depths of your oceans have evolved. The modification is necessary that organisms might be able to function on a planet where the difference in gravity is as 1 to 3 compared with your Earth. In other words, a minimum density is necessary to produce maximum lightness, as there is no lesser or greater in the economy of nature. Nature is God manifest. The most infinitesimal mote in the universe is as perfect within itself as is the most gigantic sun. Size is but relative. The anatomy of the midget is as perfect and complex as is that of the mammoth. And so there exist in the universe inhabited worlds that are relatively very small. Circulating around the sun in orbits between Mars and Jupiter are numerous small planets or asteroids. One in particular, which is known to your astronomers as Vesta, is encompassed by an atmosphere and is inhabited by diminutive people and a correspondingly diminutive fauna and flora. The diameter of Vesta is about 500 miles, although your astronomers give its size, erroneously, as much smaller. While the subject of these discourses is mainly spiritual, you are getting many scientific facts. And although not a volume of them, you are getting a proper understanding of the cosmos. The universe, with all its suns and planets, is analogous to a perfect watch. Each sun and planet moves over a prescribed orbit in a given time, mathematically proportional to the movements of all the other celestial bodies, just as the geared wheels of the watch conform to their prescribed movements. The celestial bodies are seemingly actuated by invisible gears and are held rigidly in their proper places by a mighty force whose power is incalculable. This is evidenced by the fact that all celestial bodies conform to that inexorable law, divine harmony. That all planets describe equal areas in the same time in their ceaseless journeyings, and that the square of the time of their periods is as the cube of their distance from their common centers, is an exemplification of the reign of God's harmonious laws. You must remember that empirical knowledge is but a perverted view of truth. All the fleeting things of life are but dross, their apparent reality an illusion. Material life is but a projection from the cause world into the effect world. Man is but a reflection of a reality that transcends his material vision. You are on the threshold of a great awakening on your planet, which is yet in great darkness. But the dawn of a better day is nigh. Christ is coming into his kingdom, which must be in the hearts of the people. His second coming means that he will come into your lives with the power of the Spirit. But this can only become possible through an awakened understanding of spiritual laws. Although man on your Earth is in great darkness, it is not the darkness of Jupiter, which planet must undergo many changes before it reaches your evolutionary stage. Communication between planets in our system and your Earth will be realized in a short time, and the initial message will be from Mars. This event will herald a new era for the people of your Earth, for it will be an important factor in the breaking down of the medieval dogmatism of the past, a narrow-minded theology built upon a perverted corruption of God's limitless universe, a universe narrowed down to your Earth and the inhabitants thereof. Man's presumptuousness and sophistry is in direct ratio to his ignorance. And that is one reason why materialism holds sway among a majority of your so-called learned scientists and the people generally. But the materialism of the masses is not so degenerating and destructive as the impossible dogmas entertained by your numerous sects, who have made God, who is infinite love, an anthropomorphic monster. These dogmas are priestly inventions, created to frighten God's children, to make of man, created after the image of God, a crawling, servile creature, instead of what he really should be, the highest manifestation of the divine. the culmination of God's handiwork. Chapter 16. The Risen Christ, Easter Sunday, April 4th, 1920. Your Earth's inhabitants are celebrating today the resurrection of your Savior by gratifying the desires of self. We of Mars do not have such events to commemorate, for we never crucified him. We'd opened the door to his wonderful truth. Not one of your Earth's inhabitants can perform the miracles Christ did, but we can. Our leaders, who are our advisors, guides, and spiritual teachers, are Christ-like men who can do all the works that Christ and his disciples did. He said, "These signs do follow them that believe," and we have never stopped believing. Your condition is pitiful. There is nothing but darkness between you and the truth Christ tried to give you. Christ is only an idea on your planet, and not a reality in the hearts of your people. Their whole thought, for weeks past, has been devoted to their personal adornment, and in preparing festivals for this occasion. In your churches, where they seem to observe the period of Christ's suffering, it is only a form. They go through their vain repetition of prayers that have no soul in them, and your 6 weeks of so-called Lent is only a mockery of its real significance. If you would live the Christ life, you would not crucify him daily in the flesh, but would come to that consciousness that he is risen in your soul. You are continually crucifying Christ all over your planet in the same way that you crucified Jesus Christ, for you either deny him or pervert his truth to suit your selfishness. All of the people on Mars have lived on other planets before, except your Earth. The Earth has not advanced enough to be placed in the line of progression yet. However, the time is near when you will experience that progression. It will be after you are high enough spiritually to receive word from the Martians through mediums. This work evidences the fact that you are beginning that experience now. Take hope, for after the obscure darkness must come the dawn. Your whole Earth is now in terrible travail, but the result will be the birth of the new Christ Spirit. You get glimpses now and then of the real Christ life, but do you? Or can you realize what life on a planet is like when all the inhabitants live the Christ life every day? That is why we have the wonderful manifestations of the Father's love in our intricate and delicate mechanisms and in our utilization of cosmic energy. It is thus that we receive the Father's wondrous gifts. But Mars never became what it is until God purified it by his Son's example, and we accepted him as our Savior without murder. Your planet damned itself to many bloody eons by the rejection of him, and your religion has been blood, blood, blood. In your last 5 years, you have been given enough blood to drown all the martyrs you have given to your bloody God. Your planet is in slavery. You are slaves to your conventionalities. They are like shackles on your souls, like bands of iron. And yet, you cling to them until it seems you do not want freedom. It is only truth that will free you. And as long as you cling to false ideals and sham systems, you must expect to be slaves. Pin your faith not in material money, but in spiritual wealth. Take no heed of the morrow. Be of good cheer. Make wide the opening to the Spirit. He will enter. Chapter 17. Physical environment, the result of spiritual causes. For they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. Hosea 8:7. The creator and dominator of the entire universe is divine mentality. The only real actuality that confronts sentient being is mind. We are born, live, and have our being amidst physical surroundings that in final analysis are mere illusions. This idea is not new. It forms the base of most systems of philosophy from the dawn of civilization to the present day. Our physical environment is the result of our mental attitude. Mars is blessed with a climatic tranquility that would surpass the understanding of an Earth dweller. But this was not always so. In proportion to the spiritual unfoldment of the inhabitants of a planet, so is the degree of climatic tranquility enjoyed by them. This may, at first reading, appear far-fetched, but it is true nevertheless. Those who live on a material plane are immersed in the effect world. The dominating and primary influence that gives rise to all material phenomena have their inception in the cause world, the world of spirit. Hence the turbulence of the elements originate through the law of vibration, deep down in the mentalities of those who make up the population of a planet. Cloudbursts, severe windstorms, and other disturbances of nature are all adjuncts of the spirit of war and rapine. When a race has discarded the pursuit of false ideals and comes into harmony with the Father, then there occurs a corresponding change in its physical environment by reason of the vibratory influences at work. These influences have their inception in the mentalities of sentient beings who are doing the Father's work in the advancement of the races of men throughout the entire physical universe. This same vibratory law is at work throughout all physical planes, and a knowledge of this law was referred to by Christ when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." On Mars, owing to the high spiritual state of its inhabitants, who are in harmony with their Creator, climatic conditions are, compared with your world, most perfect. However, there was a time, measured in terms of your millions of years, when the elements on Mars were as agitated and capricious as they are today on your blood-stained globe. That was before man on Mars had unfolded spiritually. As the Martians progressed and unfolded spiritually, there occurred a subsidence in the roughness of the elements. And today our planet is blessed with a tranquility proportionate to the high mental state of its inhabitants. Chapter 18. Material Life. A lesson. At the expense of what may appear as painful reiteration, it is my desire to impress upon the readers of this book this truth. Material life is necessary to unfold character, to develop the real self, the divine part in man, the only principle that endures forever. There is a lesson in every phase of work, in every joy, in every sorrow. That lesson is love. Until you have fully realized this truth, you will not become full heirs in the kingdom of God. He that loveth is born of God. Christ taught that the kingdom was not of your earth, and that all material things are transitory and would ultimately vanish like mist. The story of Mars is a lesson to you as to what may be accomplished towards a more harmonious relation with the Father, towards a truer realization of God's real kingdom. But in any event, you should not idolize the Mars people, for the Father's kingdom is more perfect. Mars idealism is only a degree in the progress in the cosmic family of worlds. The soul must really strive for a higher goal. The Martians, after ages of time, have mastered their natural passions in suppressing self, but they have other heights to scale. But he who conquers a sordid environment, he who rises from a black pool of iniquity, he who finds the Father's kingdom amidst an uncompromising warfare with sin, deserves more credit than he who is favored by circumstances of birth, with more congenial surroundings and a higher spiritual environment. You must remember that the individual on Mars, although living amidst an idealism, is beset with problems of life also. Our problems are more subtle and of a very different character than you are accustomed to deal with. Every plane of life has its complexities. If this were not so, the stimulus for growth would be weak indeed. Your most apparent problems are material only to your understanding, since you are living under a most pernicious social and economic system, a system which puts a premium on selfishness. All sentient entities are functioning in a universe of relativity, and the perfectness of the Martian character and the ideal material and spiritual aspects of the planet are so by comparison only. Martians are self-conscious of their shortcomings and aspire to higher things in God's kingdom, for progress is eternal, and the ultimate goal is never reached on the material plane of action, for the pinnacle of all progress is God. Be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is also perfect. Chapter 19. A Martian Home. The home is the molder of character in the individual, and in most cases, the home influences determine the future of the man. Home influences are the most lasting and abide by the individual unto the end of his material career. All the habitations of the people of Mars are beautiful, and a brief description of one will give our reader an understanding of the other millions of homes on the planet. I will take you into a Martian home in the city of Urid the Beautiful. The rooms are large and commodious. Sunlight, which has been filtered through translucent glass to temper and rob it of its glare, floods every room. There are no stairs to climb, for the 5 or 6 rooms, depending on the size of the family, form a rectangle with a court in the center. There is a fountain in the center of the court, and beautiful flowers grow in profusion. Birds of vivid plumage fill the air with their song. In one of the large rooms, a mother sits at a sewing machine, making a garment. For the Martians use these machines too, although they are a great improvement on yours. Not all the clothing is made in the homes, but much of it is. And this is easily understood when you recall that the Martians are true artists and possessed of great originality. The mother's attention is now and then centered on a very small child who sits on a velvety carpet. This carpet would be a most wonderful acquisition in the home of a man of wealth on your earth. It has a soft, fluffy pile 2 inches thick and makes a most comfortable floor for the baby to play upon. This baby is about 18 months old and plays with toys just as your Earth babies do. A beautiful young girl enters the room. She is dressed in a simple, becoming gown of white, and she carries her school books with her. After removing her hat and putting her books away, she begins to tell her mother of the wonderful things learned at school that day. She is studying the harmony of music, particularly the relationship between electromagnetic vibrations and music. The mother shows much interest, and from her store of knowledge clears up many doubtful points in the mind of her daughter. And so, the hours pass quickly until the father comes home and joins the family circle. The walls of the room are white and are relieved here and there by the most beautiful tapestries. The few furnishings of the room express beauty through the artistry that is born of love. There is a lack of useless furniture and bric-a-brac in the room. A table, a few chairs, and a receptacle for books, also a couch, complete the furnishings. But this simplicity in the matter of furniture adds a spirit of freedom to the home. There is no kitchen drudgery in store for the housewife. The family repair to a dining room where food is served by the mother. The food has just arrived from a central depot in a mechanical contrivance which runs underground. After the meal has been partaken of, the soiled dishes are returned in the same manner by which they were conveyed to the home. Later in the evening, the family prepares to attend a lecture or musical concert nearby, or perhaps a visit to some distant part is considered, in which case an airship is ordered from a public aerodrome. Chapter 20. Art. As harmony is an expression of the Father, its coexistent art is an expression of the laws of rhythm through the individual when permanently registered in a material way. The more a created object conforms to the laws of harmony, the more pleasing it is to the eye. The artist gives expression to his soul within with paintbrush, chisel, or loom. And the quality of his production is proportionate to the development of his spiritual nature. All of God's creatures are artists, although only a small percentage of his evolutionary creatures are able to express materially what lies hidden in the soul. Hence, a beautifully executed painting, statue, or tapestry appeals to and interests almost everyone, even though few are able to execute their own artistic impressions. The reason for this is that the average physical makeup is defective, and therefore affords a poor vehicle for the expression of the real entity. Then again, artistic ability is a question of individual development. Primordial man's efforts to depict that which delighted his soul were crude indeed, compared with the creations of your world's foremost artists today. But in a relative sense only, for the state of your art is as far behind the art of the Martians as are the carvings of your prehistoric cavemen behind the productions of your Michelangelos. As man unfolds spiritually, there is a corresponding advance in his artistic point of view. This is evidenced by the fact that art has flourished more on your earth among those races and individuals who are spiritually inclined. The products of the monastery and cloister in the Middle Ages are witness to this fact. Amongst a materially inclined people whose selfish instincts have stultified their souls. A people whose ultimate goal is the acquisition of material things. A people whose only ambition is to satisfy self. A people whose ideas of real happiness are the pursuit of material pleasures. Art has little place except as a fad. This is the condition today in many parts of your world, and especially so on your Western continent. Prize fights and the sensualities of the stage interest many more people than do art galleries and the beauties of nature. The fact that God is the supreme artist of the universe can be established not only with the microscope, but with one's natural eyes. Divine art is expressed in every atom comprising the universe. And poor indeed is he in spiritual gifts who fails to feast his eyes on God's handiwork. As art is an expression of God's law of harmony, it can be said that its development on Mars has been a stimulus to the development of every line of planetary activity and enters into every phase of Martian's social and industrial system. As every one of God's creatures is an artist in the making, every Martian is a developed artist. Hence, every product of the loom or forge on our planet is an artistic production and reflects in a material way the soul of the Creator. The incentive before the Martian is to work for the pleasure of working, which in ultimate analysis is God's work. Of course, such a system of industrial activity would be impossible among a partially developed people. Art on Mars typifies man's spiritual and material progress on this planet. This planet's past history and present achievements are woven into the products of the looms. The warp and woof of our beautiful tapestries, so much in evidence in every home, express the spirituality of the Martian people, as do also the creations of the Martian sculptors and the works of those who use brush and paint. Some of the most beautiful productions of Mars, art in painting, sculpture, or tapestry, depict the scenes and various episodes incident to Christ's visit to Mars 10,000 years ago. They show many wonderful works of the Master, but we do not call them miracles, for as later art shows, the leaders of Martian spiritual attainment were and are true disciples, and do also the works of the Master. Mars's past has been one of achievement spiritually and naturally in a material way also. So when the Martian artist weaves the story of the past in his loom, there are no misgivings, for the Martian past is not fraught with hate, sin, and suffering. Chapter 21. Scientific Sophistry. For we are of yesterday and know nothing because our days upon earth are a shadow. Job 8:9. The term scientific sophistry well fits your multitude of theories concerning truth. Science, which connotes a higher wisdom of hidden things, has degenerated on your earth from its original purpose. The overthrow of ignorance and superstition, and the development among intelligent beings of a near approximation of ultimate truth, to an orthodox dogmatism which today is on a par with the unreality which this self-same science has sought to eliminate from the shallowness of the human mind. It is quite true that the modern scientific method of investigation, that is, along the lines of observation, followed by the formation of a theory and finally by demonstration, has resulted in the release of millions of souls from a darker thraldom than that which now besets them. But nevertheless, the human race on your planet, now undergoing its probationary experience, is to be pitied for its blindness in matters of real import, namely, spiritual truths. Your scientific methods, instead of leading you onward towards the central sun of spiritual enlightenment, has so beclouded your vision that your race today, that is, the so-called enlightened and learned portions of your population, have been deflected from the main path, and they will soon find themselves pursuing an illusionary will-o'-the-wisp. Another result of the adoption of the modern scientific method has been the tendency of those endeavoring to bring light into the dark nooks and crannies of human existence, to immerse themselves in an abysmal materialism from which rescue is almost hopeless. This condition is the result of a loss of spiritual vision, and is the final effort on the part of scientists to explain the riddle of human existence in accordance with a cleverly thought out, but most amazingly deficient, mechanistic conception of life. Since the inception of modern science on your Earth, based on the scientific method of investigation, its devotees adopted a spirit of skepticism concerning all problems of human activity, not susceptible to measurement with the foot rule or analysis with the test tube, with the result that the newer science of psychology was invented to supply a reasonable and material explanation for the subtle and mystifying phenomena of the human mind. That the conceivers of this science of psychology have been successful is attested by the many remarkable explanations given to account for everyday manifestations of human and animal mentality. I will venture to say that this idea applies to all branches of modern science, as there seems to be no class of phenomena in the entire universe, whether in the realm of chemistry, physics, or psychology, but what can be clearly elucidated to the satisfaction of all scientists with the aid of an adequate terminology. So today, your science in final analysis has degenerated into a system of clever word juggling. It is true there are today in the ranks of your foremost investigators and God-inspired men who are seeking truth. Their names and their achievements will be treasured by a grateful posterity, and it is to be regretted that their declarations, based upon tireless investigation and honest opinion, are derided by their fellow workers in the realm of truth. All your scientific theories are based upon certain postulates that in time are out of agreement with observed facts, and you are compelled to cast those postulates aside, adopt others, and theorize anew. This fruitless search for truth must go on until a divergence is made from the blind trail, and the right path is found that will lead you to the ultimate goal. Be not surprised, then, that the revelations in this book will meet with the usual criticisms launched at every new idea of truth that has been given to your world, from the time man first walked erect and beheld the stars in the firmament of God. Error must and will dissolve presently in the presence of truth, which will abide with you for all time. Help hasten the day of the Lord. Notes.